Welcome to the Dealing with Goliath podcast. This is a solo episode that I call The Benefits of Low Expectations. So I was thinking about this the other day that back in 2013, I went to Australia. There's this rugby tour called the Lions Tour. So there's a selection of players, like a super team, if you like, of Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, go on tour and play in either Australia, New Zealand, or South Africa. And this time in 2013, it was in Australia. It's a rotating tour that happens every 4 years. And it's kind of a big honor for players to be selected, all this sort of stuff. And they play quite a few games, but there's usually 3 major test matches. Anyway, a friend of mine pretty much talks me into going. I had never particularly wanted to be in Australia, ever. I had nothing against Australia, but you know the way you just have one of these mental lists that you're not even maybe aware of, but when an opportunity comes up, you think, nah, I'm not really that bothered. You know, there's so many other places I'd rather go. But anyway, he was like, oh, we've friends down there. It'll be an amazing tournament, an exciting thing, and it would be a brilliant trip. So I said, yeah, why not? You know what? Let's do it. It's best excuse and best reason for me to want to go to Australia. But as I said, I had no particular interest in Australia, nothing against it, but just never grabbed me as somewhere that I particularly wanted to go, you know? And I have to say, I had an absolutely fantastic time. The place, the people, I think it was some of the best produce of food and general food standards I'd ever had. The weather was extraordinary. The coastline in Sydney just blew my mind. It was extraordinarily beautiful. We were in Melbourne as well, but I was kind of dazed and confused with jet lag there, so I don't actually remember Melbourne that much. But I was blown away by Sydney. I was there for 3 weeks. And it still kind of affects me that when you go somewhere where you have such low expectation, the bar is so low that it's probably actually quite easy for the place to impress, to make a really positive impression. I mean, the other example of that, my cousin and dear friend of mine lived in Dubai for many years, and I promised I'd go visit. And I never really had that much of an interest, let's be honest, in going to Dubai. But my cousin was there, a lot of time for the cousin, so yeah, why not? And I managed to make it one of these, as my friends call it, double barrel trips, you know, where I do a lot of these, where the cheapest was through Istanbul in Turkey. So I visited a friend there on a phenomenal 5 or 7 days. And then as a complete comparison was in Dubai for 5 or 7 days. Again, Dubai, no interest beforehand going there. Wouldn't have gone there without my cousin being there. But once there, she brought me to some very interesting places. Food was super. Weather was 28 degrees. What's that? 90 degrees or something in November. Yes, okay, there's something to be said for this. I was fascinating, but again, it was another one of these examples that when the bar was so low that your expectations were down there, that it was easy for it to impress, because it's almost like when the expectation is low, you're almost childlike in your exploration. You're just, the expectations have dropped away. Because what are expectations? Expectations are a form of belief. You're saying, this is what I believe this place to be, or this is what I believe, you know, this business service or this film is going to be like, or this client is going to be like, or the supplier is going to be like. You have an expectation. But when that's removed, it's amazingly freeing. It's almost like you're removing maybe the goal. you're removing almost an objective sense of the thing and are able to appreciate it and accept what you get with less of a filter. It's almost being able to appreciate something and accept what you're getting in a more moment-to-moment basis than some sort of goal that you have this expectation you're going to have a great time, or this is going to be a fantastic deal. Now, don't for a second think that I'm saying you shouldn't have goals, that I'm saying you shouldn't have high expectations. It's particularly of oneself and one's performance at things. It's great to be aiming very high and to have high standards that you ask and request either your clients or suppliers or colleagues or whatever to step up to. But I'm just sort of, that's a norm, you know, that's a norm. I'm just trying to give the flip side of that, maybe a different perspective. One thing that it did touch on, so this lightness of expectation, was this idea that I regularly have in my head. Two parts of me. There's many little parts of Al, but two of the main ones that are often in conflict that I keep trying to unify, and sometimes they are, but I call it the sphere and the spear. So the sphere is like this sort of Buddha Al, who's super chilled, full of love for the world. What happens, happens, accepting and empathetic and very generous and all that. Zero ambition, right? Everything's going to be fine, this kind of thing, right? And the other is the spear. Now, this is the aggressive alpha entrepreneur. Get your ass in gear, get out there. This is now like super high standards, hard charger type stuff. And as you can imagine, there's often one plays off against the other. And what's interesting, I think, about lowering those expectations, just for as a travel example, was that it really helped the Buddha Al to really maybe just flow and just accept and see, and oh, that's interesting, let's go over there, and oh, that seems, yeah, and you're more gently observant, you're aware more, I think, rather than being mission orientated toward having a certain type of time, a certain type of experience. And this is something, as I said, the ongoing interaction, sometimes it's a battle, sometimes it's much more in alliance between Buddha Al and more sort of alpha, aggressive Al, is exactly that balance. It is that interplay of the different types of experience you have when you're in that different, very different headspace. One, you maybe appreciate process more. You're able to stop and smell the roses, smell the coffee, and enjoy those little moments, moment by moment, which is very much what Australia was like, compared to, as I said, being that goal-focused, mission-orientated, trying to get a certain experience out of it. I read a study years ago that Japanese and American tourists are the most goal-oriented tourists. Would you believe that they have this huge checklist? They feel, I think it's because the idea was for an awful lot of Japanese and supposedly American, this is what the study said, I don't know how accurate it is, but they feel that they have to be nearly doing things, very task-oriented type of tourists, type of visitors when they're on vacation, on holiday. And as I said then, this lowering of expectations, which just opened up the field of possibility, because when you're not on mission, then you have possibility. And this is something that I, oddly enough, just realized right now is what I encourage in clients. I usually try and get them to, and I am a terrible man for this. I drop the ball on this all the time. Try and encourage them to just have half an hour, and then an hour, and then 90 minutes a week to stop and actually reflect. What worked, what didn't. That's kind of in an analysis way, but it's also much more than in the spirit of, as I said, finding that Buddha self, that inner calm, to actually go, well, what am I really about? Where am I really wanting to go? And more in a general journey, a direction of experience, rather than necessarily a very solid, distinct destination. it can be hugely freeing to mix up both, because then when you go back into the hard charger who's super goal focused, mission orientated, all that stuff, you're coming back from it from the opposite. So you're seeing things afresh. You're seeing there's some of that Buddha owl still there, to see those opportunities rather than just having the blinkers on and going for one thing. And this comes up in negotiation quite a lot, where people get very tunnel visioned. There's a great phrase, I don't know if it was Chris Voss's or was it Stuart Diamond's, but I think both of them actually said it, was never be so focused on what you want that you wouldn't take something better. And I think it's very much those people who are in that hard charger. Now, sometimes those people won't take something better because they're nervous and their tunnel vision, because of their emotional sense, their emotional state, which is fair enough. That's a different issue. But others, I think they're just fixated on a particular goal, but forget why they want the goal. And of course, this is in my, my little negotiation preparation cheat sheet, which is all about this, is that, yeah, be clear on what you want. Absolutely. It's amazing how few people really are. But far more importantly is, what's the purpose? What's that purpose to serve? What's that, if I get that, what's that need that's being met for me, for my business, for whatever the need it is that you're trying to serve? But when you get clearer on the why, then you have huge flexibility, because you have multiple ways to meet that purpose. And it means that you're far, ironically, by understanding the why, by coming a bit more into that sphere rather than just the spear, that you can actually increase your likelihood of getting what you want, precisely because you're able to be more dynamic in the ways to feed that. But that comes from stepping back and being on a little remove from it with some regularity. So try that. Try taking 20 minutes, 10 minutes, like asking yourself in a more arm's length way, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the goal? What's the objective here? But more, as I said, in a journey, and where your business is growing and who you're growing into being, rather than necessarily purely in a destination goal sort of way.